everybody, and welcome back to my channel for this Friday morning, afternoon or evening across the world where you might be at. I hope you're all doing well. And I was browsing during the Christmas holiday and this podcast came up called The Way I Heard It, which is the podcast host's channel name, and the guy who runs it's called Mike, and he had a guest on called Danny, and they were talking about the neurodivergent workforce. As a neurodivergent autistic woman myself, I thought it'd be good to review it and critique it and to give my reaction to it. So I've got 2.5 pages of my notes here, and it was uploaded 4 weeks ago. It was episode 461, and I thought I would talk about it. It's from an American podcast. I know I'm British, but as a neurodivergent autistic woman, I wanted to let you know my thoughts on it. So, first of all, they talk about giving people the ability to achieve in the workplace. I couldn't agree more with this. And by the way, I really liked the podcast. I thought it was excellent. The guy has over some million subscribers, and it was really well done. The questions were really well phrased. The discussion was natural. It flowed. And it seemed like they were really both enjoying each other's company, and I really liked the way that they interact with each other. There was no awkward pauses or anything, so I really liked that. But again, I agree with the ability to achieve in the workplace. I think the problem is, especially within the US, like they're saying, and here within the UK, that I can relate. A lot of people who are neurodivergent or autistic aren't given the time or, the encouragement to achieve or being able to achieve, because a lot of the time employers and people won't let us have the chance to get our foot through the door to try and achieve, whether that's paid work, volunteer work, some form of work trial, etc. They don't really give us a chance. And he was saying that people being late diagnosed because Danny was talking about his son being diagnosed, and they were saying about they started up this company called Tech, I think it's called, Tech. And all the investors before they started Tech were saying, no, because you want to put tools in the hands of autistic people, not going to happen, no. And he kept on pushing, and eventually he started up his own company and has got people supporting him, and he hires a lot of neurodivergent autistic people to work for his company, and they produce things. And then he says that the reason he called it TACT was that he chose to believe in his son, who's autistic, and other neurodivergent autistic people, and that they deserve a chance to work and a chance to be productive and part of a community and part of the country in general, which I agree. I wish people would do that here in the UK. I believe that we should have something like that over here in the UK, where we can get skills and training, and we can get encouraged to be believed in and have something to do to help us function every day and to effectively communicate. And then the big question that they asked, which I left a big section here in my notes: what is autism, ADHD or neurodiversity? So I have the answer for that. Autism is a spectrum of different needs, levels, abilities, talents, giftings, and it goes from being, basically what they said in the podcast, it goes from being severe at one end, needing more moderate long-term support, to people who are Asperger's, high functioning like myself, who need minimal support but still need a little bit of support to do some daily things or things that we need help with. And then they asked, what is ADHD? So again, ADHD is a spectrum. It is a spectrum of the most severe, the most impacted, to the most functioning people. Neurodiversity is a spectrum of all of that plus some. So you've got ADHD, autism, OCD, epilepsy, all that kind of spectrum. That is what neurodiversity spectrum is. It's people who are not necessarily autistic or ADHD. It's people who are OCD, epileptic, and other problems within that spectrum of things. So I hope I've described that for you. And then they go on to talk about we need to have more autism and neurodivergent friendly employers. Again, I totally agree with this, because it's something that we should be already doing. It's now 2026, and we should be, as a country here in the UK especially, I know the US are a lot better than us, sadly, but I know that the UK, we need to get a lot more better with employees taking on autistic, neurodiverse people with mental health issues as well, because it's something that we need to see as a strength rather than a burden, rather than a cost of money, a cost of time. It needs to be, what can we do to train these people up? What can we do to increase their giftings, their talents, their abilities? What can we do to help them to self-service, to self-help them, to make sure that they can go on to another further job if possible, or they stay in one job, or they decide that one of their talents can get them into a career. So whether that's things like tech, science, photography, music, the arts, caring, medical, like anything that's to do within that kind of technical, where you have that routine, the structure, you know what to expect, you know what's going to happen, you know what time the shift pattern is, you know what time you're going home, and you know what kind of people you're going to be working with. So again, that would help. And then they also said that a lot of people within the US, when he went to a local politics board back in 2022 and 23, a lot of the politicians didn't supposedly know what autism is. That worries me, considering that autism has been around since the 1940s, 1950s, in the press and media, so I don't understand why they didn't hear about it in 22 or 23, considering that autism's been around for centuries, decades at this point. But I don't understand why they didn't have some form of training, awareness on it, some kind of self-knowledge. They could have read up on it, they could have printed some information out to self-help themselves. And then they went on to talk about people within the military who come out after service who identify as being neurodivergent or have a form of PTSD. They were saying that PTSD can be related to the autism and neurodiversity spectrum. Yes, in some aspects no, because I think PTSD should be its own diagnosis for a reason. I think PTSD is something we have to be very, 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 very careful with labelling or diagnosing. I'm not a medic, so I'm not diagnosing anybody with autism or other such conditions. I'm not a medic, I'm just somebody that lives with autism. But we have to be very careful when putting the labels of autism, ADHD, PTSD, OCD, any of them kind of diagnoses out there, because it can cause a lot of problems if not researched properly and not talked about properly. Then they went into talking about waiting lists are still years long. Absolutely bang on the money there, especially within the US and here in the UK as well. Unfortunately, the waiting list this is for adults only over the age of 18 for my country. I don't know about the States, but in the UK right now, it's approaching a 4 to 5 year waiting list. And that's just to get a assessment. That's not to be assessed or diagnosed. That's to get a assessment, to get on the pathway to get a diagnosis. So I can understand why the frustration and impulsivity and the frustration starts, because 4 to 5 years is a long time to wait. For my diagnosis personally, I had to wait from start to finish. It was about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. So yeah, it was still a long time. That was back in 2014 for me, and it's now 2026. So yeah, 13 years ago. So yeah, and it says that the pathways are not offered to individuals with autism or neurodivergent. They're not explained. They're offered, but they're not really explained. We're not really told, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is who you're going to see, and why you're being assessed, what needs to happen now, what we need from you. Like, it's usually explained to the parents of the person. I think that's where also we go wrong medically. We need to be explaining this to the autistic or potential neurodivergent person, because the neurodivergent person and the autistic person has the right to know about why they're being assessed and why they feel they need to be assessed and what goes on within that criteria. And then they went into talking about schooling and what they call in America IEPs, whereas here we call them EHCPs, which in America they're called individual education plans, and here in the UK we call them education healthcare plans. So that's the only difference. They're both technically similar, the same thing, but that's the different terminology names within the US and the UK. Then they talked on about therapies, and therapies, I understand where he was going with this, but it kind of annoys me because they were talking about ABA, which for a lot of you who don't know, who may be new to my channel, ABA is Applied Behaviour Analysis. I'll leave some links down below about information about it, but I believe personally, this is my autistic opinion only, ABA is not good for autistic or neurodivergent people. It is a way to self-conform from the government to say, you're autistic, you're neurodivergent, you must do this to act normal. You must do this to get better. You must do this to communicate. And it's really dangerous because it's basically used on animals to make the animals behave if they've been naughty, or if an animal's out of control, they will use dog behaviour lessons. It's basically the human form of dog training. And it really, really worries me because it's basically, again, playing with an autistic brain, playing with a neurodivergent brain, who basically shouldn't be getting controlled like that. Doing some form of behaviour control is not going to work. It may lessen the anxiety and behaviours, but it's not going to fix somebody. It's not going to stop them from being autistic or neurodivergent or otherwise. It's not going to stop them from being who they are created and made to be. You know, we need to stop pumping out this ABA stuff and go, oh, well, my child or adult's on ABA, you know, and we've done this and this and this and this and this to make them better. No, you haven't. You think you have, but you haven't. And then they went on to talk about diets for autistic people. Again, I know this is self-opinion, self-perspective, and I understand that this supposedly has worked for them, and I'm glad that he's found some kind of diet fix supplement solution thing. But he's saying that by taking gluten out of his child's diet, he's seen a massive improvement in his behaviour and communication. I'm glad that is the case for him, because he has managed to find something that he believes in, and that is helping his son to better communicate and to feel better. I'm really, really happy it's working for them. But again, not all diets are regulated, not all diets are scientifically backed, and I don't think we should be putting this kind of information out there about diets unless there is facts and proven statistics on it, and each their own about that. But personally, I wouldn't put out there about diets for autistic people with neurodiverse conditions. I don't think it's right. I think it's quite scary, because that then goes in potentially to the quack territory, where we're talking about false things and false medications, and yeah, you have to be really careful. Like, that's why I'm being really careful what I say here on that part of things. And then they went on to talking about communication in families. So again, that is something I agree with. We have to try and help the autistic person or neurodivergent person within their own family to communicate, like express what they're good at, you know, help them to point things out. Like, they want to, for instance, say they want to talk to their family member, whether they're non-verbal, semi-verbal, or needing help with like sign language or a tablet, or, you know, they're not able to verbally be like I am expressing things to you. Like, giving them a chance to have their iPad, their tablet, and then we have what's called little picture cards, so pick cards, where you can pick pictures and show people what you need and what you would like, or you can press buttons on an iPad and it will voice what you want. So whether you want food, or you need the bathroom, or you want to get dressed, or such things like that, it can help you to successfully communicate. And then he talked about being in the workplace, being in some form of trade college. Like, he offers this tech program, you know, it keeps us disciplined, focused, it keeps us specialised on one thing at a time, it keeps us focused, our attention to detail shines through, which I really, really appreciate, because again, he's given the chance to many autistic people and neurodivergent people to focus. He's given us the chance to prove ourselves and prove that we can be successful and be part of a team and a working environment and a routine that's going to keep us, you know, aware of the situation. And then he talks about intense topics. Again, this is something that should be encouraged and motivated, because again, a lot of us do have intense topics, whether that's about science or math or, of specialist interests. Like for me, it's Buffy, it's Elvis, it's politics, it's things that I have had since I was like 10, 11 years old that are still relevant now, and I'm now 37 years of age. So, I've had them interests since I was a little girl, and them interests have still carried on lifelong. Like, they haven't stopped, they haven't changed, they haven't all of a sudden I thought, oh, I'm a bit bored, I'll move on. No, it's always been one, two, it's always been some form of rigid routine. And again, he then talks about a lot of autistic and neurodivergent people took their special interest into a career. So whether that's again like things like tech and like aerospace or music or film or food or things that are intensely important to them, it can get them into a lifelong career where they make friends and a social network, a social circle. It can be the most important step towards their independence to do so. I think that's the way we need to encourage things. So yeah, I really like the way that was talked about and expressed, and they were having a really good debate about it. And then they moved on to assumptions about people with autism and neurodiversity, and that often society who are neurotypical, normal, non-disabled will assume that we are less than. This really still annoys me because this is something that still happens now. Like, there was a situation I actually experienced today in my hometown where there was a boy with significant problems, I think supposedly autism and maybe an intellectual disability of some kind. He was being picked on by some people, and he goes around my local hometown with like a steering wheel thing, and he walks down the road and pavements like talking to people, and these two people decided today they were going to pick on him and be like ha 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 and like laugh at him. That really upsets me because it still shows the ignorance that happens between not just my country but other countries. It shows that people with disabilities are still being judged, criticised, labelled, made as a target for a scapegoat, for a joke, for a bit of banter, and that's not okay. Like, to pick on someone who's supposedly less than you, no, why would you do that? Like, no, it's just not okay in any shape, size or form whatsoever. And then I'm going to be talking about the trouble with credentials and restrictions. Within employment, employers don't seem to want to give people like me a chance because they know that we would be loyal, 1,000% loyal, we work hard, we're dedicated, we won't stop work till we get the job done. Like, we are dedicated, we are loyal, we are social when we want to be. We need to give neurodivergent people and autistic people the chance to prove themselves. And then also they talked about feedback within the workplace, again for autistic people and neurodivergent people, that we always put the effort in, and sometimes we don't even need to have that feedback. Sometimes it's just a case of being smiled at or told well done, or like, oh, you've done this, oh, you've helped this person. Like, it's that recognition to say you've done really well. Like, it's not necessarily we need constant feedback and reassurance that we're doing something right. It's just that smile, that thumbs up, like to actually encourage us. And then Danny was saying that he went to see the Dr. Temple Grandin when his son was diagnosed at her conference, and she was one of the catalysts that inspired him to do the business that he does now. And then they talked about non-conforming of autistic neurodivergent people to society. I'm so glad they brought this up because it's something that has been a long time on my lips, and I've talked about this before. I am not a non-conformist. I don't conform to society. I see things my way, do things my way. I'm very much about, I do things that are comfortable for me when I want to do them. I very much interact with people when I want to or when I need to. And the fact that if you don't make us conform and let us be us, we can actually help see things from a different perspective outside the everyday typical box that you guys see. Like, if you give us a chance to be us, we can actually help you and your business succeed. And then they talked about the unemployment rate. So I've got some figures here. 90% of people within the US who are got autism or neurodiversity are unemployed. Here in the UK, it's 3 in 10 adults who are unemployed, or they'll be underemployed. And then they talked about how big is the autistic community and neurodiversity group as a general. 19% of Americans identify as neurodivergent. 15% of the UK population identify as neurodivergent, which I completely agree. We have to stop thinking of people with autism and neurodiversity as less than. I agree with also he says that one size does not fit all people with disability. Absolutely bang on the money again. I absolutely agree with that, what he said there, that we all think and act and see the world differently. We do, because it's a spectrum. We are all different. We all think, feel, say things differently. We're all people who are different in whether it's our behaviours, our traits, our work, our focus, our abilities, our speech. Like, we're all different. We all do things to help us differently. And we need to start thinking of the autistic and neurodiversity community as a gifted population. Absolutely bang on the money. Absolutely right. It's about time that both the US and the UK did see autism and neurodiversity as a gift, as a special bunch of people that will help you to make the workforce better, and not just that, the community as a whole in general, you know. And then the last thing that they talked about was the guy, Danny, being angry at the doctors when his son received a diagnosis. He made some of the staff cry, and he was emotional. I get the being emotional and reacting, because when you're told that you're autistic or potentially neurodivergent, for me it was a lot of emotions. I was very upset. I felt really angry because I was made to feel I was silly and stupid, and you know, I felt like I was let down by the system. I constantly fell through the cracks. And, you know, I've had to go through my whole life pretty much until my mid-20s not knowing what was wrong with me. I constantly had high anxiety. I constantly struggled to make friends and keep them. I struggled to maintain a social circle. I was very anxious going out anywhere. I didn't know what to wear. A lot of the times I would panic about what to wear. Things like that. I struggled to get any form of help within the educational system because I had no diagnosis or no physical attributions showing that I was struggling. Again, that's something that is very, very common in the US and the UK side of things as well. So let me know what you think. Please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. I'd really, really appreciate it. I will link the podcast down below that I've been reviewing, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!